as usual, I have to ask you to make sure your electronic devices are switched off. Ask any remote participants if they will keep their camera off and to only put the microphone on when they're asked to speak. The meeting will be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC and KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it's not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. So welcome to this hybrid emergency committee meeting, including any visiting members, either in the chamber or remotely. The following officers are in attendance: the Chief Executive, Larissa Reid, the Monitoring Officer, David Clifford, the Director of Resources and Section 151 Officer, Lisa Fillery, and the Democratic Services, Joe Millard and Philippa Davis. There is no evacuation intended, and I think everybody here knows what the evacuation arrangements are. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. There are no apologies.
Okay. Minutes of the last time we met as an emergency committee, are they agreed? And are there any declarations of interest that any members got? No. Okay. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the constitutional amendments, delegation to Chief Executive. We have just had a GP meeting, and the majority vote from the GP was that we should agree this. Can I ask this meeting if we agree the constitutional amendment? Agreed? Agreed. Okay. Yeah, of course. I'll propose, and a seconder, Councillor Martin. And you wish to speak, or are you just voting in favour?
No, I was not voting in favour. I do not agree with this and vote against it. Thank you.
Okay, you vote against it. And Councillor Simmons. So those in favour? And those against? That's 3-all. So it's a chairman's casting vote, isn't it? And I'm in favour. Okay, so that's passed. Councillor Byrne, sorry, I didn't know you were there. Please ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a point that was raised. I was listening to the GPC earlier, and it was mentioned, but I don't think we actually had an answer. In terms of the delegation and the need for convening meetings, where this issue, where you're saying could potentially be difficult to raise an emergency committee meeting, but the point was made in the previous one about the planning committee, and yet that is a far greater number of members, but is still meeting in the council chamber. So how does that balance up, and with the need for saying that we can't have a smaller meeting, please? Just a point for clarification. Thank you.
No, it's a good question. I'm going to ask the chief to clarify for you.
So thank you, Councillor Bowen. The issue isn't about now. If we had a situation where we couldn't hold a meeting, that's when this delegation comes in. It's not that we would not be able, we would say we can't have an emergency committee, but we can still have planning. Clearly that wouldn't be logical. This would be in effect in the situation, whatever that situation might be, where we can't hold a meeting. And in those cases, there is the opportunity, it is not a foregone conclusion, there is the opportunity for the Chief Executive to make decisions following consultation. So I think what we need to do is take us away this meeting and saying, actually, we're holding this meeting because we can, and we feel at the moment we can hold planning committee. This would be in a situation where there is no other option because we can't hold any meetings. So I can't ever envisage a time where I would take a decision instead of an emergency committee meeting and the following day a planning committee. Because clearly if we can hold planning committee, we can hold another meeting. And the delegation says in the event you cannot, it is whatever it says, but you cannot hold a meeting or a committee meeting.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, we've agreed that. So agenda item 6 is the changes to officer delegation following management restructuring. Again, the GP agreed this with a minor amendment to recommendation 2 to ensure that when the monitoring officer is considering minor amendments, he or she would necessarily consult appropriate members. Can I ask if we agree with this? Okay, all right. So I proposed, Councillor Horton seconded. Agreed? Agreed. Okay, good. All right, we move on. And I think what we should do now, we can't approve the recommendation to the audit committee without really considering the extra agenda items, agenda item 10 and agenda item 11. So I said earlier in the meeting, or not the other meeting, that on the whole, my experience over a long time is that very few members have a lot to say about the Treasury Management report. This is the half-year report. The second paragraph that does illustrate the difficult market circumstances that the economy is in. Growth overall is slow, so that does affect investments. We are suffering from tighter supply chains and so on. So it's not necessarily a good time for investment. There's a note in 2.5 about our borrowing and our settling of borrowing with local authorities. The investment indicates that really we've done rather well over the period of time. And this has been through audit. Do any members have any comments to make? The recommendation is to note performance information in this report and to approve the prudential and treasury management indicators within the report. I'd like to propose that. Seconder, Councillor Palmer. Those agreed? So that's passed unanimously. And then there's reappointment of external auditor. We have a choice to make here. I wonder if Lisa Fillery could just actually give us some feedback on this.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is the reappointment. We've been in the national scheme with the PSAA, who took over the appointment of local auditors on behalf of local authorities when the Audit Commission was disbanded. They are offering the same service again for the new contracts. Last time around, I think it's on 98% of local authorities opted in, and those that didn't, one of which struggled to get a local auditor, and now their audit actually is late. They haven't even started the 2021 audit. They might have started it now. They hadn't when at the time I wrote this report. So I think there is local audit is in a bit of a bad state at the moment. The auditors can't get auditors to work for them, so the deadlines are being missed, not for us, not through the fault of the finance team, but it again, that is a national issue. It's auditors, they can't get them in the private sector either. I think our options here are, we are better to be part of the pack for this. Audit generally does need to be improved. The government are trying to work on that, but I think that the best option for us is to say, and otherwise we would have to go out to procurement for ourselves. We'd have to manage the contract ourselves, which is what the PSAA do on behalf of local authorities. The chances are we will end up with the same audit company again, but from our professional point of view, consistency is quite a good thing with an external audit team. I said that at the last meeting. So yeah, my recommendation is that we opt in.
Okay. Councillor Horton.
Only that I fully accept and support the recommendation by the officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All agreed? Agreed. Okay. So I think that means we have, accepted approval of the audit committee minutes. I find it a bit difficult that we can't actually approve the cabinet meeting. I mean, those items have got to go through a scrutiny, and they've got to go to full council, I would have thought. So I would suggest that we just, well, we can't, I don't think we can give approval for that. I'm not sure we should really put that on the agenda. Councillor Horton.
There usually is a clause that you can submit anything that you are required to decide to another committee if that other committee is suitable. Well, I think we can just pass these through because we are committing it to the council to make the decision.
That's right.
Yeah.
Councillor Beard.
It does state that the emergency committee is asked to note, so I don't think any decision's actually being made.
Okay, at the top it says recommendations for approval. The recommendation is to note, so we'll note that, but there's a little bit more water to flow under the bridge under that. Councillor Martin.
Before we note those, and it might just be my copy being an older copy of the agenda, but I think £130,000 for painting of white bar markings might be a little high. I think it might have been 130. It says recommendation.
Yeah. He's eagle-eyed. It's 130, not 130,000.
It's all right. Easy to miss a decimal point, but we don't
It
want to.
really meant to say £130 and no pence. That's what you really meant to put there. Okay, agreed. So the next agenda item is the exclusion of press and public, to decide whether to pass the resolution set out below in respect to the following item, that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 1, information relating to any individual. Agreed? Thank you.